I'm Chad, and joining me is Alex and Max, and we're going to do a really weird presentation where we're going to go over 2 hours, 90 minutes. The three of us, we're going to be talking about doing stuff in Red Giant. And it's a pleasure to be here with all of you, with all the great people at Maxon in this beautiful venue, in this beautiful city. It's just a really, really fun thing. So thanks for being here and joining us. One of the things that is really exciting to me about this situation here with the three of us is that I get to work with Alex, and I'm a huge fan of his work. And this actually plays into the theme, so I'm not just kind of just building up for nothing here. But this is some of Alex's artwork, and I'd like you to notice, up here,
Excuse me for interrupting you.
Oh, please.
Before he goes into this, we did not prepare this. I had no clue. I just got in here, I watched his laptop, and I was like, this was not planned.
Yeah, it's a surprise.
None
of us know what the other one's doing. It's great. But my secret ploy was to work with Alex because I'm a huge fan of his work. I think Max is as well. Absolutely. And he has this really frenetic energy. There's just still frames from some of his work, but notice how there's just, even in these flat areas of color, there just seems to be this kind of dirt, and that provides so much energy. Look at these extra little doohickeys, all this kind of cool nonsense happening around the frame. It just creates a lot of energy and intensity. And even though these are still frames, they feel like they're almost just alive. You could just feel the motion. You could feel what would happen. If you were to press play right here, you could feel what would happen because there's so much energy in the design. There's a lot of chaos. There's a lot of stuff that just there's a couple dots here. What are those dots doing? I don't know what those dots are doing, but they're just there, and they add character and energy to the whole piece. And then, so hold that thought. I'm going to come back to that. And then I was recently in Bruges, and as I was walking around Bruges, they said, I saw the sign for a Salvador Dali exhibition. And if there's one thing I know about life, is that when a Salvador Dali exhibition calls you, you don't send it to voicemail. You know what I'm saying? You pick that up and you talk and you go and you explore the Salvador Dali exhibition. And one of the things that really struck me, if I zoom in here to this this painting, there are a lot of drawings and sketches and things. And, they're all done with pre-digital stuff. So they're using organic tools. And, when you're using organic tools, there's an interesting thing that happens. There's, it talks back to you. Salvador Dali, was oh, I'm going to paint this blue line. And then the line was maybe not. I don't think I want to do that. I think I want to go in this direction. And I think I want to spread some paint in this direction. And so when you're using organic materials, it speaks back to you. You say, I want you to do this. It says, I feel like doing this. And there's this great relationship that happens when you have these organic tools. And here's another couple examples here. There's a watercolor, probably, I don't know my materials, but something like that. But you can just see the chaos here. And even a master as great as Dali can't plan for these little happy accidents, as Bob Ross calls them. It just kind of spreads all over the place, and it has an energy and a character of its own. And here's one other final example, these ink splotches that are kind of all over the place. So what I wanted to do in this group thing is I wanted to look at how to use Red Giant tools in the same way where I could get these tools to speak back to me, where I can say, hey, I want to try this. And it could say, okay, but also have you tried this other thing? And that's really what I wanted to play with. And the Red Giant tools are kind of built for this. They're built for kind of playing. They're built for this kind of response as much as you can. I mean, keep in mind that computers are literally built so that when you give it an instruction, it does what you say. When you type a thing, it types out the thing. It doesn't come back with prose or something like that you didn't intend. It's meant. They're built that way. But when we're doing art, it's really great to have these opportunities where we get these happy accidents and the software can kind of inspire us back, which is something that's sometimes lacking with digital tools. So I was playing around, and these are some kind of initial experiments that I had. So I was playing around with using Red Giant tools together, and I got this kind of watercolor look. And then I fiddled with some settings, and I turned that into kind of like an ink and paint type situation. And then I got this like 3D sprocket, and I was moving it around, and it kind of felt like hand-drawn. And the way that the light was hitting this, because of the way I set it up, it's kind of, it's interesting. There's textures and patterns here that I could have never predicted. You know what I mean? There's like shapes and the way that light interacts with these settings that I couldn't have specified. So I got a little bit of that kind of like DALL-E organic medium speaking back thing going on. And this is the final that I came up with here. And so as I play it back, there's some random things happening and there's some cool organic things. But it was the process of making this. Actually, I could make this bigger. There we go. But it was the process of making this that was really fun, that I'm excited to share with you here. Whenever you're on stage and you take a drink of water while everyone's watching you, it's a really interesting thing because it feels like it takes a very, very long time. Even no matter how fast you go, it feels like it takes a very long time. So thank you for your saintly patience while I took a drink of water. Okay, so the first thing I did was I made this head in Mirror, which I thought was pretty fun. So I applied Trapcode Mirror. Most of the tools I'm going to be using are from the Universe collection of tools. Some stuff is native in After Effects. I'll talk about that as well. And then a few Trapcode things here and there. Not too much, but one of them is Mirror. And Mirror is a very interesting tool. I actually did a course on Cineversity, which is free, so I'm not trying to sell you anything. It's free, so if you're interested, if you have the Trapcode suite and the Red Giant tools, I recommend checking that out, because Mirror is this really weird tool to kind of wrap your head around. But then once you understand it, it opens up the possibility to do so many incredible things. So to get my major centerpiece for this, I just had this is the default settings of Mirror. And basically, Mirror just creates an area of geometry. And by default, it's set to plane, but I could also choose 3D model. And then it goes black for a second because it's like, well, what 3D model? So I have to click choose 3D model or choose model. And then I'm just going to do right here at the top, bust male, and click OK. And then we have this bust, this male bust, which is really easy to set up here. And then I'm going to go into my shader and make sure that that's set to smooth. It is, so that's good. I could go ahead and increase the size of that here, move that around, yada, yada. But this is fully 3D. I could have him look around. What's over there? What's over there? And this becomes really cool when I create lights. So if I go over here and I make these lights, I can really add a lot of dimension to this here. So what I did is I just made a couple lights. I did one that was kind of like a key light type thing, and then I did one that was like a backlight. So we just got like the edge of him like so. But then, this looks like a CG head. It's not very inspiring. But we do have a situation that is like primed and ready to look more sexy than it does. So one of the things I did, and this is where I spent a lot of my time, if you're in After Effects or Premiere, you can go to the window menu, go to Extensions, RG, or Red Giant Universe Dashboard. And what this is a collection of capsules, or what we call presets, or presets are what we call capsules, here for all these different Universe tools. And Universe is a collection of like 90-something effects. Do you know how many effects are in Universe?
I think it's over 100.
It's over 100?
Yes.
Okay, it's growing all the time. Big collection of effects for all over the place, and they get installed into DaVinci Resolve, to Avid, to Premiere, to Final Cut. So you could use all these tools all over the place, and they're in a bunch of different categories. So there's blurs and generators and motion graphics and ways to stylize footage and all kinds of really amazing things. And if I'm in the dashboard, I can kind of like go and browse through and meander and be like, oh, what you got for me here, Universe? And then I could click on a preset. Like if I click here, I can apply the effect from here, which is convenient. But if I click on the thumbnail itself, I get to this hidden world of capsules, a bunch of presets that are made for that particular effect. Now, I've been at Maxon long enough that I've actually been able to participate in the creation of some of these capsules. And the process is actually really interesting because I was responsible for making some, and I would make them, and then I would send them off to a bunch of other artists and designers, and they would give me feedback and be like, that's really dumb. Why would you ever do that? Or whatever. They were much nicer. But like they would give me a bunch of feedback, and so it went through these processes of, kind of getting refined and collated and gathered in a very intentional way. And so that is one of my tips for having the software speak back to you, is by using these presets. It's almost like it turns you into an art director. So I can say, I don't have to open up a tool and be like, okay, I want to change this setting to this setting. I can be like an art director and say, hey, you know what? Why don't you, like a great team of artists, why don't you get together, put your heads together, inspire me, wow and dazzle me, give me some ideas to choose from, and then I can tweak it to my liking. So those presets are kind of like one modern way where we can have our software speak back to us and give us feedback and inspire us. So I went to, in the stylized category is phenomenal. The stylized category is probably the best category of universe. Don't tell anybody else I said that. Like generators, we love you. Motion graphics, you got some great stuff going on too, but stylized, you're my favorite. So I'm going to go to this hollow matrix effect, which is great for simulating any kind of like screens, holograms, any kind of stuff like that. So it has like glitches built in. There's like a separate glitch effect, which is also amazing. But then hollow matrix also has glitch effects. And I don't remember which one I used, but it was a good one. Whatever preset that I used, it was amazing. So I can just go, I'll just click Mockingbird, which is like this like kind of like hologram. So then I have this thing, and you could see as I zoom in, it kind of created this like matrix thing, like that makes it look like it's being projected on a screen. There's some glitches here. If I animate this, you can see that this animates. And there's this kind of like distortion on the side here. There we go. So you see that like there's some frames that are kind of like normal, and then there's like this kind of like distortion that kind of like waves down through it, and there's just kind of occasional pop. There's all kinds of stuff. So again, I didn't have to specify every single thing. Like Dali with the paint of the brush, I didn't have to specify every single thing that I wanted. I said, I kind of want something distorted. I kind of want something that looks like a screen. And then like the watercolors, the software was like, okay, but have you thought of this? And I really appreciate that about that. And then I also went to the same spot again. And I went to stylize. And there's this cool multi-tone effect. And so I applied multi-tone. And again, I don't remember which preset that I used, but I'll just go ahead and apply that. Yeah, that looks actually pretty close. I probably just used the default settings. Don't tell anybody. That's what I did. The default settings sometimes are great. I think I tweaked them a little bit, but look how that changed the shadows and the highlights. And you might say, if you're familiar with After Effects, well, there's already the tritone effect, buddy, because you could already color the highlights, midtones, and shadows. But with the multitone effect, you have the ability to adjust where the midpoint is. So on the regular tritone effect, what is the highlight? What is the midtone? Not to wax philosophical, but like what is the highlight? What is the shadow? And you don't have any control over that. But here with this, with multitone, I do have control over what is considered a highlight, what is considered a shadow, which is pretty fun. Okay, so that's like the head that I made. And I'm going to move a little quicker here because I'm going to leave time for everybody. This is the fun thing that I did. This doesn't have anything to do with like speaking back, but I wanted to create this kind of like wavy thing in the background. This kind of like, okay. Yeah, this kind of like wavy texture in the background there. And I was kind of playing around with ways to do that, and I found this like really simple one. So I just like drew a line with the shape layer, just like boop, just like simple straight line. And then if you open up the shape layer, you can add a repeater. And so then I could go into the repeater and repeat this. And let's make a bunch of copies. And we can't see what's going on here because what the repeater does is it makes a bunch of copies, and then whatever transform settings you set in the repeater, it offsets each one by that thing. And by default, it's set on the X axis here. Yeah, 100 pixels on the X. So we can't see it. It's going sideways off screen. So I can adjust the Y. There we go. That's what I'm talking about. And so I could stretch this out. And so we see that we have this repetition. And then if I go and I'm going to unlink scale, I can scale this down in the y-axis. So it creates this like cool 1980s Miami Vice type thing. Do y'all have Miami Vice where you're from?
I love
Miami
that.
Vice?
Don Johnson.
Don Johnson. Yeah, with this little like 5 o'clock shadow. Like that made 5 o'clock shadow. It's cool. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to add another super fun effect, turbulent displace. And already we got something kind of cool and fun. And so we can adjust the size of this, like how big this displacement pattern is, and I can adjust the amount of how much I want to distort this. I could go into crazy values and create something like Alex would make with like the circles and stuff like that. He does this all the time.
I mean, it looks good.
It does look good. So I did that and then animated it and created that those bands. It's not the most like jaw-dropping trick, so you don't have to be that wowed by it. It's fine. So another thing that I did that was fun is in the final, I have these eyes, and I wanted to create something that felt like spray paint that like was really organic. And I was like, how do I do that? And so that was one of the things I think that probably took me the most time, where I'm like sitting there looking at pictures of like how spray paint behaves, and like what am I doing here? I'm embarrassed to say how long it took me, but the end result was actually pretty fun. So what I did is I took a font, and it's just a simple font, and I used a capital letter X and a lowercase letter X, and then sized them up to be the same so that there was some variety. And then I used rough and edges to tweak that, and I won't go too far into that. But another thing that I did for this is I also added Trapcode Particular. And I'll just warp to the final here. But I added Trapcode Particular using the cloudlet sprite. So it had like the shape already had some irregularity. And I just I used it in the form behavior. So I just kind of spread it out and put some glow on there and some noise that I'll talk about in a minute. And it's pretty fun result. I like that. Now, another thing that I did that was a little zany is played with Echospace. I don't know if any of you ever used Trapcode Echospace. It's a very old plugin, but it still has value. I think it's really cool. So what I did is I made some text and a black background, the "You Are Next" text over here, and I pre-comped it, and then I just applied Echospace. Now, Echospace is one of those ones, like many of our tools, many of the Trapcode tools, that don't speak to you right away. Like when you apply it, you're like, okay, what did that do? So what I first need to do what it's going to do, it's going to make a series of clones that I can control very easily. So I can go into the repeater and say, actually, I don't want this to offset in Z. I want this to offset in X, and I want to lower the opacity. So it's very much like the repeater that we saw with shape layers. And once I get kind of like the parameters that I kind of want to fiddle with, I could set up the instances. Maybe I want like 5 instances, 5 copies, and then I click repeat. And then what happens, it makes a series of clones, and there's a bunch of like hidden layers that are created here, and a bunch of like nulls and science that I don't understand. But I don't have to understand it because I can just go back over here to my repeater settings and then adjust this. So I could have like this fiddling like this, the rotation, that kind of thing. So this is another way, again, talking about the talking back, the software speaking back to you. Like if I had to go and manually set each copy and then rotate each copy, like that's too much work and I would give up because it sounds boring. But by using Echospace, I can very quickly iterate a bunch of copies doing a bunch of different things and play with that here, which is, I don't know, really fun. I thought it was a fun way to play. Okay, a couple more examples here for you. I'm going to go ahead and play with this. Oh yeah, so this is fun. So Symbol Mapper is like one of my favorite tools. And it sounds weird, but if you're trying to create the kind of like frenetic, intense, energetic stuff that Alex makes that I was showing off earlier, it's a great tool to create random chaos. And so what I did, this is kind of a fun little, actually, I'm going to go to the dashboard again. This is a fun thing to play with. I went to generators, turbulence noise, which is kind of like fractal noise. Renders a little bit faster, and the noise patterns are like a little bit different. But there's all kinds of really great presets to check out. So I'm just going to apply ridged here. And then one effect that I used all the time in my experiments, I don't know, I'm going through a phase right now where I'm using Chromatown a lot. I love Chromatown. So basically Chromatown, it takes one copy of your layer and overlays it on another copy of their layer, and you can offset them, and then it creates like a chromatic spread between the two. So by default, it kind of creates this like warping thing, but if I go into the quality section, you can kind of see what it's doing. If I take this down to 3, yeah, maybe I lied about, you can tell what it's doing. In this example, you can't really tell. But you can see that there's like a blue, green, and red like separation. And then as I increase, actually, maybe go to the end. Maybe I'll offset these a little bit more so you can see that. Yeah, there you go. See how it's making a red, blue, and green version of that? And then as I increase the quality, it's increasing the number. So like, as I take this up to 4, it's bringing in like magenta and yellow, I think, something. And so as I keep increasing the quality, it creates this beautiful chromatic streak. And then I can rotate the end. Look at that. I mean, you start playing with Chromatown a little bit, and it's just like you sneeze, and then, oh, whoops, there's beauty everywhere from Chromatown. So what I did is I did that, and then I added some curves to just make this pop. I just wanted anything, just any kind of texture. There we go. And then I applied this amazing new tool, kind of new, called Symbol Mapper. And it basically takes everything on the screen and converts it to characters. So it's like made out of characters. And you could choose whether you want uppercase letters, lowercase letters, symbols, numbers, any of that kind of stuff. And maybe I'll take the symbol size down a little bit. Can you see that that's letters there? And I'll maybe take this down in size. And I could take down the spacing into negative values. And so then I have, my original shape, but it's much, much cooler because now it's made out of characters. So there's a lot of chaos and randomness, which is really exciting. And then as I animate this thing, which I think that the turbulence noise is already animated. So if I move this around, and you can see that this is just already animating just from playing with these presets, that I have something really interesting here. So in the final version, nope, that's not it. In the final version, I just put like a layer of this symbol mapper stuff using the same combination of turbulence noise and Chromatown and symbol mapper. I just like overlaid it over the top of like most of the stuff. So you can see that it just provides this like really interesting texture even in the dark areas. I'm not sure if you can see that. I'll increase the exposure. Whoop. There we go. So you can see the symbol mapper in the background just providing this like really interesting texture that's provides a lot of like chaos and noise and stuff like that. It's pretty fun. Okay. And then we had the final look, and I'll just like walk you through this because I think that that's a big part of creating stuff that looks organic. Doesn't really have anything to do with like the art talking back to you, but I created this final adjustment layer that I think made a really big difference. Final look adjustment layer, here we go. And I'll zoom in so you can really see what's going on here. So here is before the adjustment layer. Whoop. And you can see that it's dead and lifeless and boring, and I would get thrown out of IBC for showing this. But then I add some optical glow, and it's like, okay, you're on thin ice, buddy. We're watching you. And then I add some camera blur, which is really subtle, but I really love this. So here's before the camera lens blur, and here's after. It seems kind of dumb, but in the real world, like no matter where you go, and don't let the rest of IBC hear this, but like no matter how great your cameras are and your lenses are, they can't resolve things perfectly sharp. They just can't. Like if you're like shooting like a box and you zoom in, there's gonna be softness on the edge. That's the nature of optics. There's humanity in the man-made glass that we use for lenses. But when we have digital stuff and you say make a straight line, computer's like, hey, I got you on this. I know how to make a straight line. And that line is straight. So when we're creating art that we want to feel organic and have humanity in it, then we have to dirty it up a little bit. We have to take those perfectly sharp edges and just kind of make a little bit of a mess of them. And so this little camera lens blur takes this from being this like computer straight edge and then adds this kind of like life to it. It just adds this softness that adds that like little degree of humanity. Then I bumped this up with curves, and then finally added renoiser, which is an effect in the Magic Bullet Look suite that just adds a bunch of noise. Because again, if you're just filming something, it adds, it's going to add some degree of noise to it. Camera sensors just add some degree of noise. And if you're wanting something that feels really edgy, chances are it's not going to be super clean. You're going to want this kind of like noise and gunk on the surface. And so Renoiser is the best tool for that. And Renoiser also had this really cool added benefit, because here's my X's, my little my spray painted X's. When I added the Renoiser noise, it brought out these extra details and added noise around the X's here, which added, made it feel more like kind of spray paint gunk getting all over the surface there. So when we back out, we could see that there's the before, the adjustment layer, and then there's after the adjustment layer, where now they're allowing me to stay here, which is cool. Now, the last element that I added last night in my hotel room was this little mosaic pattern. And I came up with this trick that I thought was pretty fun for the mosaic thing. So I'm just going to show you that, my last little thing that I'm going to show you here. So what I did is I created an adjustment layer, I created a mask, and then I'm going to apply the good old mosaic effect. Mosaic. And I spelled it correctly. All's good. Now, the mosaic effect, if I crank up my exposure here. Oh, wait, it's an adjustment layer, so I can't solo that. There we go. So the mosaic effect, it creates a mosaic out of something. It turns it into squares. But the problem is that these numbers, it says how many horizontal blocks you want, how many vertical blocks you want. And the downside of that is that they're not going to be perfect blocks. When this effect was invented back in the day, most pictures were square. And so then it made sense. You would increase the number of horizontal and vertical blocks to the same degree, and then you would have squares. But now, because of the way, we're doing stuff widescreen, thankfully, then these blocks don't really add up, and they're askew. So what I came up with this system. Maybe I'm impressed. I'm an American. I don't know math at all. So if I can add any two numbers together without a calculator, I'm feeling really, really good about myself. So maybe this isn't impressive to anybody else. But I wanted to create a system to be able to have easily adjustable blocks that were equidistant, equal size. So I know that this is a 1920 by 1080 composition. So what I did is I just made 192 by 108. So I divided them by 10, a number. And so then I just said 192 by 108. So then I know that I have square blocks because the number of blocks, the ratio, corresponds to my aspect ratio. And then what I did, and here's the smart part that I'm really proud of myself. Mom, if you're watching, I know you've never been prouder here. Because what I can do then is I can go to one of these numbers and I could say, okay, divide by 2. If this is like too many blocks, I could divide this by 2, and then I get, they're still proportionate because I'm still dividing them by the same number. So what I did was, I'll just show you the final example of that. What I did was I created a slider control, an expression controller, and then I linked up these two to this slider. Actually, I can show you this. This is not going to take very long. Max, I'm going to eat into your time for like 30 seconds. I'm really sorry.
Absolutely.
Okay, thanks. I appreciate that. So what I did was alt-click on the stopwatch to create an expression, and then I'm going to, after the expression, I'm going to put divide by, a little divide slash sign, and then I'm going to use this pick whip to say divide by whatever that number is. And it's going to give me an error because it's divided by 0, and you can't have that. But when I did that, then as I increase the slider, I'm creating proportional square mosaics, and I'm like resizing them dynamically, and they stayed squares. And if you're good at math, then that's not a very good trick to end on, because it's probably very self-explanatory and easy, and there's probably a bunch of other smarter ways to do that. But I was proud of myself. I thought it was pretty cool. So anyways, the point is that creating this was a really fun experiment and project for me, because these Red Giant tools give us so many ways to explore and play, where we don't have to necessarily manually tell it exactly what to do like a computer. It gives us variety and variation, and kind of like the DALL-E stuff, it allows it to speak back to us a little bit and be inspired by the tools. So thank you, and we're now going to have a Q&A or something, and then switch it over to Max here.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you for being patient with my water drinking, by the way.
There's a simple question from me, Chad.
Okay, do it.
About Trapcode mirror or something like that.
Yeah.
It means like when you're a mirror, does it mean that you can create like 3D object without ever leaving After Effects, and you can just stay in After Effects and create a lot of 3D simulations, 3D objects, so to say?
Yes, I'm glad you asked that, because that's exactly what it means. So whether if you're in Mirror and you want to create 3D objects, with the plane, it's like a 3D, it's like just a flat plane, but it is a 3D object. So you can use fractal maps, fractal noise to displace it. So you can create landscapes and things like that, and 3D objects like in that way by distorting just that flat piece of geometry. But then also, if you're using a 3D object, all these objects here, these 3D objects, all these things, they ship with Mirror and are built into the software. So you don't have to know anything about 3D in order to use any of that stuff. Good question.
That's really cool. Thank you so much.
My pleasure. Thanks for asking. Turn it over to you, I guess, like while we do our little housekeeping laptop switching stuff. Okay, do I need to let you out so you can...
Cool. So now that we're going to switch a little bit of the hardware here, I just want to let everybody know that we have prepared like some sort of a live experiment where we're going to get out of our comfort zone, and Max is going to do some compositing. He's a very talented colorist, and he's just going to showcase how easy it is to accommodate with our tools and how simple it is to get started. And me, I'm going to get out of my comfort zone, and I'm going to do some color grading and being hated by everybody because everything looks ugly. But at least I just want to like get to know the tools and showcase to everybody how easy it is. And it doesn't really matter what you like to do. The Red Giant tools are very simple, and they can get you started and accommodated very quickly.
So how we ended up with this presentation is that we work a lot together during when we were preparing for IBC, and Chad was very kind and handing over his scene, and I got to take a look at his scenes and asking myself, hey, this is actually doable. Me as a colorist by trade, I haven't been in fusions. I mean, let me just admit it. I've been just in fusions only for color-related stuff. Whenever I'm creating LUT, whenever I'm creating something color-related, then I'll be in fusions. So with that being said, it means like I know a little bit about fusions, just like to get around it. But I'm not gonna call like myself as a full-blown compositor because I'm far away from that. The thing is, with Red Giant, it should be doable because the tools it invites you to be creative. It's very easy to use. Everything is just within one click away. And as Chad mentioned before, it invites you to be more explorative. So that's the thing. And let me switch it. Alrighty. So as you can see, the style of the scene itself, it looks pretty familiar. Chad will be like laughing at me at the moment.
No way, it's amazing.
Because we have like the main object as a cassette and the text that says "Be kind, rewind." I mean, I stole that like right away from my favorite movie. And here, what I did is that everything was created within Universe. So there is nothing, there's no tools that I use outside Universe, except for the ACES transform, because I'm apparently working in ACES. But let's not get into that. Since we can only work with Universe in fusions, that's not the limit, but, because Universe plugin itself, with just Universe plugin, we can create stuff like this very easy. And first of all, what I did here, let me switch into two screens. The first thing, I start the compositing project by dropping in my black background. So if you're not familiar how Fusion works, it works whenever you are creating a Fusion compositing, compositions, it gives you like this scene with one media out, right? And whenever you want to create something, you have to port something into the media out to be able to be projected. So in this case, I'm dropping in my background. And by the way, to search for tools, you can just press Shift and Spacebar, and it will bring this commander. And by typing in BG, I got my background, and I just press Add. Now it feels like, all right, I have the background and I have the media out, but I have black screen. All right, that is because I haven't poured my black background into my media out. So now, if I change my black background into blue, for example, I have my background in the screen. And there's like this tiny button over here, like the two tiny dots. So when I'm pressing one, it will bring the viewer into the first screen. And if I press one again, it will disable it. And now, as you see, it is only in the second viewer. So that's how Fusion works. The first thing that I did, let me just go back to the previous scene. The first thing that I did after creating the black background is that I applied the universe soft gradient. And by applying universe soft gradient, I got like very instant background just very quickly. And that can be done with within several clicks. And for example, here I have let's just switch it back to black. And by dropping background, soft gradient background, and by default, I have like this gradient that went from cyan to blue. And by clicking the soft gradient background, you will be able to access the effects in the inspector tab. And what I did is nothing fancy and nothing very sophisticated except just using presets. And by using these presets, I can get a lot of stuff very quick and with a very fancy look, apparently. And what I did here is that I'm using like this blot clot presets. And then on top of that, I want to add some texture with the background before adding all the text and the subjects. And to do the textures, like Chad mentioned before, one of my favorite tool to do that is the texturized motion. And just by adding texturized motions, you can like really see really fast that you have texture applied to your background instantly. And here, instead of using instead of going into this parameters, what I did first time is that, all right, maybe let's choose a presets and start playing around from that. From here, like for example here, I got crayon, but if you want to, you can also play around with the drop down with the texture selections. And in this case, I want to create like a dot shade, and that can be created using this fabric style. And by disabling the mask, you can really see that the effects is pretty much applied to the whole background, right? So let me go back to the previous scene. Alrighty. So on top of the uniform, let me switch back again. All right. On top of the soft gradient background, I have like the texturized motions applied on top of that. And to create a color separations, what I did there is just by adding a multitone. And if you see in multitone tools, there are options to select if you just want to use like a duotone scheme. Like with it means like you can pick two colors and create a color scheme based off that, or you can do a tritone. And using the tritone, you can target like a very smooth. You can have like a very smooth gradations between the two colors, and you can even pick totally different colors if you want to. So let me just cancel that. And on top of this background, I add another black background on top of that, and I create a turbulence noise. And with this turbulence noise, I add a prism displacement to create some glassy reflections on this turbulence noise. And just to make things more exciting, I add the glow on top of the turbulence noise and the prism displacement. So it's like you have like this glassy looking textures on top of this background. At the moment, we cannot see the first background that we create before, but that just because the second background that I created apparently is in the same size with the previous background. So what I did is that I simply mask it. And by doing that, et voila, you can really see like two background merged together, right? And on top of like this pre-made background, what I did is that just by adding simple text, and in this case, the text tool that I use are the text plus, just the text tool that is available in Fusions. And on top of that, I create a body. I give the text a body by using the tools inside inside Universe called Luster. So with Luster, you can create so many options. For example, if you click presets, there are plenty of options that you want that you can create. And in this case, I just went with Diablo presets. And from there, I transform it, put it up there on the top left, and add some glow. And by doing that, I can get like this really easy, and the things seems to work together like very easy just by using those presets. And the next one is that I create the screen text, and the screen text element is like this small text, the small blue text that appear in the background. And to do that, I can create another background and attach a screen text on top of it, and then merge it again. And on top of this, I put the image. It's an sRGB photo of a cassette that I find in the internet, and on top of the image, I apply the texturized motions, and just simply by adding a texturized motions, it gives you the animations, give you the texture, and give you like this rough edges instantly. And on top of that, I added holomatrix and transform it, and then merge it again. And on the second text, what I did is that I created a text which is called Be Kind. Hang on. Why it is not showing? Hang on. Right. So the idea is that this text was created on top of the screen text, and then it was this. All right, at the moment it's not showing. I don't know what's happening. Okay. But what I can show you is that if we switch to another project, to the follow along, what I did is that in the first background, we create this and add texturized motions. And from here, we can add another text. Hang on, the beach volleyball.
Uh-oh.
I think the main takeaway here with Red Giant is that whatever it's your software that you like to work on.
Yeah, the main takeaway with Red Giant plugins is that it's available in many multiple hosts. Doesn't matter which host you are familiar with. it will be accessible, it will be available. So for example, Chad created the compositing in After Effects. I can easily replicate that inside Fusions. So if you want to, you can also probably try it in Premiere Pro or even like in Avid Media Composer, because all of these tools are available there. So bear with me.
I have
for
a question.
second. Yeah.
While we're waiting for the ball, I noticed you had an ACES transform node, but you had several objects like first, and then you put an ACES transform node before the merge. And so I'm wondering if there's a way that you could help me to understand, with my limited understanding of color, what the purpose is of putting the ACES transform node where you put it.
Yes. The idea of ACES is that it brings all your different color, how do you call it, source, like different color spaces from your source into one unified color space and process it there. And if I am creating an effect, if I'm creating an object and then transform it into an ACES right away, it means like the process that is processed after the ACES transform will be carried away in ACES CG or whatever ACES space that I am setting up. But if you are creating an effects and doubling up with another effects and then transforming in it, means that those effects will not be carried out inside the big ACES color space, but it is carried out in this case in the sRGB linear color space. And then after that, after you got the final result, you transform everything into ACES color space.
Okay. So it sounds like you kept it in sRGB so the presets would be like look the same, but then you put it in ACES before you mesh all that together, so you could use ACES for that. Is that right?
Let me show you that, Chad.
Okay.
Like in this case, for example, the background that I created. First, I have like the black background, and then after that, I create the soft gradient background, and then added a texturized motion on top of that, and a multitone as a final finishings. And then after that, I transform that into ACES, which is as you can see in the panel in the inspector. I put my input transform as sRGB because that is the color space where my effects are processed. And then after that, I poured into ACES CG. And if you see in the end of my compositing, in the end of my node, I have another ACES transform that goes from ACES CG into the target display that I want to target. In this case, Rec 709. So it means that anytime I transform any rows that I select here into ACES, means that I will bring them into ACES, and then finally in the end, it will port back into the display color space that we want to target.
Really?
Yes.
So each of the pieces is put into ACES, and then you put a final display transform at the end. That's awesome. Thank you.
Exactly. Thank you so much, Chad.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, let me do that again. Okay. So the text, the be kind text that we want to create here is just a simple Fusion text. And then I transform it, just rotate it a little bit, add glow. And then after that, you can see here it's split into two different two different categories. The first one, I added electrify. And in the electrify, I changed the blend mode from overlay into none, just to have like this the how do you call it? Just the shadow without the text itself. And then on top of that, I add the ACES transform to go into the ACES. And the second split, it is transformed into the slightly to the right, and added blur, because you said before, in case to make things if you want to make things a little bit more organic, simply add imperfections onto it. In this case, blur it is. So that was the breakdown of the very simple compositing scenes that I created in Fusions just to recreate what Chad created before. But this is not the end of the game, right? Because we want to color grade it. In order to do that, instead of instead of sending it into color page as Rec 709, which looks good at the moment, we can simply change it into a log space, because after this we will simply just go to color page and it will be delivered to you as a log image, and from there you can just target the display space. You can still work in the log space in your color grading, and then move back the output transform, so to say, way back after the grading. And that can be done simply by selecting acisicity as my final output, and just by going into my color page, we can start grading like very simply. So let me reset all the grade, and to prepare this, what we can do is that we can bring this into ACES, because at the moment we're not in ACES. We are in the project settings, how do you call it, color space, which is in normal DaVinci Y RGB, and we have to manually color manage it. And in order to manually color manage it, you can use plugins that is available in the OFX that is called the ACES transform. Surprise, surprise. And from here, what we're gonna do is that we will select the input transform. As you remember, the output from Fusions was acisicity. We will use that as our input. Of course, it doesn't look nice at the moment. And we will go into ACES. We will go into like Rec 709 just to showcase that, it is fine. And we'll change this into acisicity, and then create another one. Or, hang on, because we are leaving Fusions in acisicity, I don't think we need ACES transform either, right? Because we are in this log color space. What we can do is that we can target the Rec 709 in this one. And prior to that, we can drop in Magic Bullet Looks. And if I launch Magic Bullet Looks and select the input to be acisicity in and out, you got the correct preview right away. Now, just to prove the point that the tools inside Red Giant Suite is very easy to use, Alex is a compositor, and I think in this occasions, he will try to take the place to color
Please don't
grade.
judge me after I'm done with this. So today it's all about getting out of the comfort zone. As Max mentioned, I am spending most of my time compositing, and I know little to nothing about color science. And my needs as a compositor are different from your needs or Max needs, or it is very situational. But what I like about Lux is that a lot of the times I just open it and I go check the capsules, and there are so many, and those presets are made by colorists, which basically just enables me to work with a colorist without being a colorist. And most of the times that's what I do. I just come in, I preview the presets, I like that, I click on it, I apply it, and then I'm done, I'm out. My composition is looking good enough. And in general, my style, the way I like to do things is I am in love with oversaturated colors, which means a lot of clipping, right? So, but that's what I like. That's my style. That's how I like to express myself. That's how I like my art to look like. And that's how I always start. I start with just hue and saturation, and I start playing with it just to like crank a little bit to get my saturations up. Maybe I'm playing a little bit with the hue just to like change my colors around, and that for me just looks good enough. And from there, I always apply optical diffusion, and What I like about optical diffusion is that it's trying to mimic a physical diffusion, like a real glow. And it gives me enough customization, but simplified that somebody like me can just pick it up and have fun with it and decide, okay, that's it, I'm done. I don't need to complicate myself. I don't need to understand exactly how it's working. And I can then go and boast about it and hit up Max and say, hey, look at me, I'm a colorist. No offense. I respect everybody that it's a colorist. It is in color science. I understand how complex it is. And that's why I don't want to get in it. But I respect everybody. So let's just crank a little bit the glow. And another favorite tool that I have is the Mojo tool. It applies some sort of a LUT, if I'm not mistaken, on top of the...
What Mojo is actually doing, it is targeting the highlight of your image and bring it into specific warm hue. And then it is also targeting the shadow area and bring it into a cooler hue. So if we take a minute to think about it, it is actually working in the complementary color scheme. Warm up your highlight, cooling down your shadow type of things.
Good. I'm so happy to have you here. So, after I'm done with Mojo, what I like about Lux is that it provides me with trendy effects without me having to like jump back and try to like replicate that. And the chromatic aberration tool, it creates me the RGB split that I need without me having to go back and forth or like manage it. And as I said, it's for me personally, it's just about being playful with it. It is not really about I'm doing this because that's how it should be done. For me personally, it's just the joy of playing with the tools. And until my eyes are satisfied, I'm not stopping. When my eyes are satisfied, that's when I usually stop and I'm like, okay, that's enough. And that's what I like about the Red Giant tools. It is all about being playful, and it doesn't matter what you like to do, what's your hobby, where you start. Our tools are ready to accommodate you out of your comfort zone, and it's just that easy. And now I can boast about I'm the colorist.
But right now, but in case you want to color it in a correct way and in a scientific way, you said like, how do I do that? Is that a possible thing with Magic Bullet Lux? Yes, it is absolutely possible because there are plethora of very accurate, color accurate tools inside Magic Bullet Lux. Do you mind if I start over and introduce Magic Bullet Lux?
Please
to
do.
the
Show
audience?
them exactly how it needs to be done.
Awesome. So here in the left corner, you have you have like button to reset everything. So just to understand Magic Bullet Lux a little bit, Magic Bullet Lux is a plugin that is made by Red Giant, and it is specialized for creating looks. And it's shipped with over 300 presets. And if you press L, you will be able to open the presets drawer. And if we press T, we'll be able to open the tools drawer. So in the tools drawer, there are 4 categories of tools that you can see. There are selective tools. Those selective tools, you can think of it as the tools that you normally see on set if you want to target a specific exposure or if you want to have like a negative fill, you can do that. And there are some camera tools. Camera tools, when we're talking about the camera tools, think about it as a effects or tools that you normally do with your camera. Think about filters, and color corrections are color corrections tools that you normally have in any color corrections package. And finally, we have the film emulations tools. Like for example, here in film negative, we have over 22 different profiles that you can use. And in film print, there are 4 different profiles. And there are also halations and optical diffusions tools. What is special about halations and optical diffusion tools is that it is created based on the 3D rendering principle that is called the energy conserving principle. It means that the tools itself will not generate the source of light. And if you see in our scope, let me just put looks back. In our scopes, if we disable the optical diffusions, you can really see that by having optical diffusions in your scene, it's not affecting the whole exposure of the scene. It just use whatever available light source in the scenes and work the magic there. So, for example, just to prove a point, let's just crank it to the maximum, and you can really see it is not exceeding the exposure threshold. Right. Now, back to the purpose, Alex's purpose when color grading before. He mentioned something that, hey, I want to get my scene to be more saturated and more exciting. Is there any scientific way to do that? Absolutely. And you can do that by moving around, dancing around between color spaces, right? And it doesn't have to be complicated. You can just use one simple tool called color remap, and by default, it is working in the color model JZ-AZBZ. The JZ-AZBZ color model, it's similar to LAB color model. So you have one channel for the luminance and the two coordinates that goes between magenta and green and yellow and blue. So for example, I already create a presets here by targeting a specific, specific coordinates of color. It means like I have the sample from magenta to magenta, green to green, blue to blue, and yellow to yellow. Just for example, if I am making my source color a little bit more desaturated and my result color all the way to the max, it means like I'm targeting this color and bring it to the maximum level. So by doing that, it means like I'm taking the signal of that colors in the LAB color space and just scale it up by doing this approach. And you can play around. If JZ-AZBZ color model is not stuff for you, you can also not the correct, not the your preference. It's not giving you the look that you're after. You can play around and perhaps change back into the LAB color model. And as you can see, before and after, I'm increasing the saturations in a very color accurate way, so to say. And on top of that, new in this release is that there are 38 new presets that was developed based on a very popular look that is happening at the moment. For example, we are now having a new film emulations looks. These are the film emulations looks that you can that you can use to start off your grade. So, for example, all right, apparently the download is not supported, but worry
Don't have
not.
access to the internet.
Yeah. Worry not, I still have that. Right, for example, the first one is film grade. It is a base. It is a base canvas for you when you want to create a filmic look. And as you can see, it is built based on the combinations of film print and film negative. And there's another iterations, the film grade high contrast, or if you like the black and white look, you can also select this, the black and white versions. But the new presets are not just like this correct and accurate presets. There are plenty of like fun and exploratory presets. So for example, something that is based on the music video or fun, let's just pick this one. And this one particular new presets came with a LUT that needs to be set into aestheticity, in and out. And just by applying this, we are creating a look that we want, very easy and very fast. And now you can still balance your footage, balance your clip, balance your render under the look. So I can show you that. So for example, if you still want to, we can create several nodes before our main look. And here, we can just play around with the contrast. Since we are in aestheticity, perhaps I don't want to change the midpoint, so I'll type in my pivot to be 0.413 and just increase or reduce my contrast accordingly. And after that, I'll add up my exposure slightly. Oops, that's too much. Perhaps instead of reducing the contrast, slightly up it a little bit and tone down the exposure. So that's just to showcase that you can still do plenty of things under your looks without making your looks as the final, how do you call it? The final touch of your image. You can still work prior to Magic Bullet looks and finalize, so to say, the looks to your liking.
Cool. Thank you very
Right.
much, Max.
Thank you very much. And is there any questions? No?
I do have a question for
yeah,
you
please.
and Chad. If I were to get my hands dirty and get to actually learn color science or get to learn some compositing, where I could find, is there some way I could interact with you lively, or maybe a place where I can just search some tutorials?
Absolutely. I feel like as an artist at the moment, as a people who's working in the post productions at the moment, we are like entering a renaissance of informations. Like the informations about color is like it's never been more accessible than today. If you care enough to search for a journal, for example, plenty of those are available over the internet. But if you want to, at Maxon, we also have a learning platform. It's called Cineversity. So anytime you want to learn more about Maxon products or the industry itself, like if you want to learn compositing, if you want to learn how to create 3D art, you can simply go to Cineversity, and we have plenty of series that will help your journey to arrive to your goal easier, so to say.
What if I wanted like new information, like I just wanted to sit down for like an hour or two every other week or something like that? Is there something like I just want to learn about color
Yeah.
on a bi-weekly basis? Is there something that could help me there?
I'm glad that you bring this up, Chad, because at Maxon, I'm also running a show that is called Max on Color every second week. And you can tune in and Maxon Training Team in YouTube. And it will be in the first and then the third Thursday of the month. And there we normally have a casual to semi-informal discussions about color grading, creating looks, and sometimes we dabbled into compositing as well. Thank you very much.
Cool.
Sweet.
If you see a weird username, misspelling JZB or LAB, that's probably me asking
That's
you a
probably
question.
yeah.
Cool. So all the screens are on. I will play just a little video to kind of like showcase what I'm going to present today. We are going to do some sort of a semi-breakdown project where we're going to create from scratch the important aspects of how I achieve this with a giant, but also like going through like exactly every tool that I use in the tool chain and so on. So my compositor of choice is After Effects. But as we mentioned previously, if you prefer Fusion, if you prefer an NLE like Premiere Pro or Final Cut, our tools are still available, and the user experience is standardized. You're getting exactly the same across hosts. So this is, as I mentioned, what I'm going to go through today. And before going into detail, I'm just going to create a fast comp. I'm just going to call it like test for now. And I'm going to go back to my main comp. And I'm just going to like dissect a little bit. This is the main comp where all the effects, all the giant tools basically stack up and create everything. And the way I started this was, okay, so I want a city and I want some sort of a background that maybe moves a little bit, and I want my city to be filled with a gradient or a color. And where do I start? So what I like about the giant tools is that is that sort of, as I mentioned, playful way of discovering and starting your journey of creating. And I think there's so many combinations because every day I think, oh, I could have done that. Oh, I could have like go around and do that thing. Or, oh, I could have combined them in that way. And I appreciate it a ton because it keeps me inspired. It keeps me fresh. And the next day when I wake up and I want to create, I start from another point that I started previously. So in this example here, as I mentioned, I just started with a gradient. So that's my base. And I used universe gradient ramp to create me like a gradient between two colors. And on top of that, I apply texturized motion, which it gives you an array of textures that it can pretty much animate it for you, and you can control the speed. Like currently, I have it set to 15 frames per second. So if I hit play here, you can see that my texture is moving like 15 frames per second. But if I were to like go a little bit slower, let's say 5, and I'm playing again, then you'd see that it's moving a bit slower. You can also make it posterize time together with your source, which is great. I don't have to worry about that. And it gives you certain options to even hook your own custom texture. So if you have something that you like, something that you work on, or maybe you grab a different texture from another place, you can just link it and it will animate it for you, and it just gets you started super easily. Or if you don't want it to be animated, you just have to change it from cycle to still. So yeah, that's how I pretty much got this background. And if I'm going back to my tense cob and I'm going to create fast, not a light. If I were to create fast solid, sorry, I'm working with the trackpad, so I'm a bit slow, but that's okay. And I don't know, I'm just gonna like rename this universe gradient RAM, just to showcase you how fast it is to create this effect. Apply gradient RAM. I'm going to select, let's say, maybe different colors this time. I'm feeling very playful, as I said. That's my gradient ramp. And what I also like about gradient ramp is that it gives me the option to control the fall off. So now I decide where my color starts, where my first color starts, where my first color ends. And I'm going to apply real quick texturize motion. There you go. And I like to work with the universe dashboard at all time open because it allows me to pick fast some of the capsules. But we also offer the options within the menus if that's for your liking. And let's just go something like, I don't know, maybe abstract. I'm going to disable the mask because I don't want it to be masked around the region. I just want to be applied overall. And if I press play, I'm already kind of very close to where I just was a minute ago, and I'm getting my background started. So let me go back to the main comp and kind of like showcase how I took this and applied to the background and created the effect, and from where like the city comes. So I'm going to create another new solid here, and I'm going to call it city. And after that, I'm going to apply mirror.
So here we go again.
Here we go again. We've been here.
We will create a 3D object without ever having go to 3D package.
Yeah, that's what I like. I'm just staying connected here. I'm staying focused, and I just really love the way our Regine tools just connect together and get you started real quick. So I'm going to switch to the 3D model here. I'm going to click on choose model, and as Chad mentioned previously too, we offer you an array of capsules. So there's a lot to discover here, a lot to play with. But for this title sequence, I went with the city because that's what I needed. And it's very fast, very responsive, and it gets me to the results that I wanted very quickly. And you get to animate it. You can create keyframes and so on. Let me just move this reel a bit down like this. Let's say like that. Maybe we can zoom in a bit more. You can also use the point control to have a more interactive experience within the viewport. Let's just put it right there, let's say. Yeah, I'm very happy with that. And I really like the gradient ramp effect, as I mentioned. So I'm going to apply another one. This time on top of the city. And that's exactly what I just mentioned. This is what I like about the Giant tools. It just works. It just feels organic. I don't have to worry about anything. I don't want a gradient on top of the city. It just does it. And let me just change real quick the colors. I don't know. Maybe let's go a bit like blue this time. Let's get some blues in there. Maybe I want to bring in the effect of some sort of a mist down there. So I'm trying to like blend it with the background color and so on. And I don't know. Let's go that way. I'm very happy with that, so I'm going to leave it exactly there. So this is how I achieved this city moving around and animating it and combining it with the background. Now, there's a bunch of other effects in here. Like I took this realized footage and I kind of like trackmate it into the city. And that's very simple to do. I just pretty much went to my project, went to my city time-lapse footage. I don't know. Let's pick this one, for example. Put it there. And from here, I just have to press this button where it toggle switches my modes. And I can pretty much set the city to be tracked, to be trackmate. And I'm also going to enable back the city because I want to control the blend mode, let's say overlay. So now my real life footage, time-lapse, it is mapped to my mirror city plus the gradient ramp. And that's exactly what I appreciate. Playing it nicely, I'm thinking I want to do that, and it just does it. I don't have to worry about it. And you can also apply to your footage the multi-tone effect in case you want to control some of the colors that just overlaid on top of our city. And you can like easily use this effect to achieve that. So for example, here I just like swapped my my purples to the blue by just going more towards the yellow highlights. And you can also control the contrast or the midpoint, which because Chad already showcased it, I have nothing to showcase it. So basically, that was how I got the city with the live footage. I animated, I got the background, and now I was like, well, I just want some facts, main titles, and I just want to create fast my text. And that's also very easy to do by just creating another solid. Let's name this one text. And I like to use typographic from Universe. And having the Universe dashboard, as I mentioned, it just lets me to pick quickly stuff already. And there's a variety of capsules that we offer. You can create with typographic anything from loaders to main titles. Maybe you just want a small text to be placed in your composition. And there's quite a lot of options. Let's just go with this one, for example. And what I like about typographic is that it's already animating my stuff. So I don't even have to worry about animation. But if I want to go more in depth, I can do that. Maybe I don't want it to be rotated, so I'm not going to rotate it. Maybe I want it to be a bit more centered. Maybe I want to play a little bit with the text and maybe add a bit more randomization to it. Again, just going to that playful way of compositing. So you can do that. You can just like with one slider start randomizing your text letter by letter and so on. And you can animate those, create keyframes pretty quickly. Let me just go back right there. And after I animated some of this text, I just put it like in the center, make it big so everybody can see it. I was interested to create some sort of a shadow effect to them. And for that, I just used universe long shadow, which is great to easily get you started with some long shadows. And what I did, I just played with the length. So it just goes around my text only. But you can also play with other things like expansions, like do you want it to like be around your text fully? Maybe you don't. Maybe you just want to use the angle and control the angle. You can change the color. I don't know. Let's do maybe black. It just gets you started real quick with the shadow. And from there, I just animated the expansion. And that's how I was able to get that no shadow to long shadow 3D FX style. And after that, I just created this texture on top of the text, and that's just playing with the TrackMate. So if I go back to my test here, and I take the text solid that has typographic on it, and I give in, let's say, the city again, you can see that wherever I move my text is just TrackMate to the city. But I still want my text to still be on top of things. So to create that, I just have to duplicate this text layer and have it nomate and change the blend mode from the previous text layer to something, let's say, like subtract. And now if I move this under, you can see that I'm getting two text layers separately, but one is following the city, the other not. And if I were to, let's say, scale both of them, or maybe move around, you can see that one is following the city, the other doesn't. So that's how I was able to achieve this TrackMate effect. And then I just really love to use Unmold from Universe. It's basically taking your footage and removes all your blacks and creates an alpha channel, but you're also able to like invert it. So now it starts to removing your whites. And that's how I was able to like put the, I don't know, square texture on my blacks and achieve this look. Now for the edge effect, I just pretty much played with find the edges. So if I am to like disable all the universe effects for now, I just pretty much duplicated my main comp. I apply find edges, and I afterwards, as I mentioned, I just apply unmold, but with the invert option on, so I can pretty much remove my whites instantly with one button. Then I inverted it again, because if I were to zoom in here, you can see that my edges right now are like red and so on. And if I invert it, I'm getting my blues back. And I also added camera shake, which is a great effect to create camera shake. And because I'm lazy, I also used a preset. Let me just go back. Let me just go back real quick. So I just use a preset. I like the car mount preset because it's already set up as if you're like in a car and trying like to shoot, so you get a lot of like shaking. And I just like increase the frequency all the way up to like 100. So that means that every single frame is getting the camera shake effect. And after that, I just play with the altitude, and I like to kind of like put twice or less on X than on Y. So you're getting the altitude higher on Y than on X, basically twice as much. And that's how I got my edges to kind of like shake around and like do this wiggle effect without me having to like get into After Effects expression or anything like that. And that's basically what I like to do. I like to like be in my comfort zone and be lazy and like achieve things real quick. After I pretty much like did the edges, after that we added some sort of a effects adjustment layer, and I wanted this time to bring some of my to create like this RGB separation effect. And Universe has a very small product that does that, but very powerful. If you are interested to create a more chromatic spread, then Chroma Down, as Chad showcased, that's basically an option to create like super complex chroma spread. But if you want something like super quick, just to create a fast RGB separation, that's what I use. I use Universe RGB separation. So that's what I did. So if I was to like on and off this, I just add a little bit of RGB separation. So now, because I have a colorist near me, I don't have to worry about that. So I'll just give it to Max real quick to showcase of how can you get the sum of using the giant tools. You created your title sequence, how you get it, and add a little bit of oomph and color graded.
Right. Right. Let's get into the fun part. Normally, when you finish with your rendering, that's normally not the end of the game, right? You sometimes want to sprinkle some magic to make things a little bit more interesting than before. I'm not saying that what you created is not interesting. It is a lot of interest there, but just in case you want to add some pop, just to make things a little bit more enjoyable, you can still color grade your footage. The first thing what I want to show you is that
Just disable that.
can I disable?
Yep. Give me a second. There you go.
Yeah. So, first thing first, when we are approaching color grading, there are like some thought process that I want to share with you, because sometimes color grading it feels like this a black arts that you don't really know what to do, and you just push things around to make things look wonderful. But there are some like a boiled down versions of how you can approach your color grade easily. First thing first, think of three things. The first thing is like the contrast. How is the contrast level of your image? The second thing is like, how is the color scheme? How is the color palette? Is there any hue that you want to change? Does one color works with the other? Is everything works as a group? And the third thing is that, how is the textures of your image? Do you need more texture? Or do you want to reduce some textures or something like that? And I think by keep asking yourself that those three questions, you'll be off into a better positions, right? So, first thing first, if we want to add color to our to add color grading to our image, is that first we need to set up the environment. But here is the thing: when you are in After Effects, and if you are using OCIO to work in After Effects, since this new in this release, if you launch Magic Bullet, by default it is already setting you up the input and output automatically. So you don't have to go through the questions of what is my footage, how do I want to tag it, and which output do I want to select. Just leave that with After Effects. Once you finish setting those up, Magic Bullet will just will take the metadata from After Effects and will give you whatever you need there. So first thing is that let's talk about the contrast of our image. There are plenty of tools that you can play around whenever you want to tweak the contrast of your image. One of the tools that I like the most is this contrast tool, because it is giving you the contrast and pivot point. So for example, if you add contrast, and you can still move around the pivot point, and those are available within Magic Bullet Looks. And the second things is that when you want to change some specific hue, you can still do that with color remap. But is there any simpler thing to do that, for example? Yes, there are plenty of things that you can do that. For example, if you just add Mojo, it gives you like this two-in-one approach. So you have contrast set up for you, and then it warm up your highlight, and then it is cooling down your shadow simultaneously. So let's just use Mojo in this looks. And what we can do is that we can crank up Mojo a little bit and perhaps reduce the contrast by reducing the punch just slightly. And the third thing that we want to think about is the textures. How is the textures of our image? At the moment, it feels like, yeah, there are plenty of like this tiny rugged textures that I already have in my image. I can add some more film grain if I want to, but let's soften the image a little bit. And to soften the image a little bit, we can always use the optical diffusions, for example. And by default, you have plenty of presets that is available in the optical diffusions. For example, if you're familiar with diffusion filter, you'll be in luck because those presets are modeled after the famous available diffusion filters. One of the filters that I like the most is the glimmer glass. So let's use that. And instead of using diffusion filters just as a diffusion filters, we can also use diffusion filters to add glow. And as we know previously, these tools are created based on the principles of energy conserving, means that it will not mess up your exposure. So we can just be playful. And in this case, let's perhaps add some more glows and cooling down the glows a little bit. And if you want to, you can change the filter if it's a streak or diffusions. And if your machine is capable enough, you can always change the quality into best if you want to, right? And last but not least, to make things work together, let's add a filmic grain on top of it. And we can just use a very light presets, either a light noise or image vitamins. And bear in mind that whenever you are using any tools inside Magic Bullet Looks, you don't have to use it like to the extreme, to the 100%. You can always tone down the effects that you want inside Magic Bullet Looks, right? And that is Magic Bullet Looks. One more thing that you can use Magic Bullet Looks for, is not just that you can use it for adding a color grade for your image, but as Alexandru will show you, you can always use these tools to create iterations of your art.
Before going into the iteration of things, I do have a question for you.
Yes.
So, because I've been a bit too playful with my stuff,
Yeah.
I can say that, let me just disable Magic Bullet Looks here. I lost some of my
The city.
things, my city. Is there a way that I can use looks where I just can bring back some of these highlights?
Absolutely. If we open Magic Bullet Looks, right, if we disable everything first, just to make sure that we are focusing on one simple thing, is that if you pay attention of your scopes, you can really see that, oh, we have plenty of informations, we have plenty of signals in the red, several of them in the green channel, but in the blue channel, there's nothing much except like that highlights over there. And to do that, we can borrow some of those signals and then assign it to the other channel. And we can do that very easily by just using channel mixer. So for example, we can just drop in channel mixer right in the front, and let's borrow some of the red channel, and we can just reduce it slightly. And we can use that to to increase our blue. So for example, we can go to the green channel and push it up slightly. Of course, if you're doing it too far, you get an artifact, and you don't want that. And doing it carefully and just a teeny tiny little bit may bring you to a better point, right? So before, after. And of course, if you just like reduce the blue all the way, you get all the detail back, but it will mess up with the another color. For example, if we are confirming that and moving to the other one, you'll see that suddenly it mess up your grade. So what you want to do is that probably do it sparsely. And that's probably how you save detail in your image.
Well, thank you for saving my details. I assume I should be more careful when I'm compositing and be more mindful for working with colorists.
Thank you,
sir. Another thing that I really like about the Red Giant tools and the way I use Magic Bullet looks is to create fast iterations, basically. And if I were to disable this and go back to my original comp, if I'm, let's say, I like this, but I would like to, I don't know, play with the colors. Of course, I could go like start opening every print composition and play with the multi-tone that we set up and change the colors there. But you know, sometimes I'm feeling lazy and I want a fast way to do that. So what I like to do and the way I use looks as a compositor is I use the 2C process tool, which Max would explain what it does because I'm not a colorist.
It's a lab process that normally that you do when you are how do you call it? When you are grading film back in the day.
In my language, that means my greens go to red and my red goes to greens, depending which way I go, left or right. And that's what I want. I want my reds to pop and everything else to pretty much turn to green. And that just gives me this space of red and white and black. And after that, I used unmold, which again, I inverted it to remove my whites instead of my blacks. And then I used again multi-tone to set up this time a three-tone, a freeway color. And that allowed me to pretty much map real quick free colors on the footage. After that, I play with the optical glow to bring back some of the glows. I applied the Mojo standalone because I just didn't feel like opening looks again, so I just used the standalone at that point. And I just added a bit of more saturation, and like that, I was able to like quickly iterate a look. And the way it's set up right now, and because as I mentioned, the Red Giant tools just play nicely together, I can just open my three-tone from multi-tone and say, hey, okay, maybe I don't want pinks, maybe I want whites. Hey, I don't want to see any blue. Maybe I want to go down to orange, maybe some reds. And now I just got another iteration with 2 clicks. So nothing that I need to go again and like figure out what composition I did what. I just set it up, compositing it and just using the multi-tone to iterate.
Right.
Cool. So, are there any questions or?
Right. If there's no questions, it seems like we're at our end. And thank you very much for your attentions. And really appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Good job, Alex.